our channel. Hey, Kat. What's up, Lacey? I have about 4 or 5 games that I would like to put on the interweb, just in case Sarah or Jeremy or me or Mike would like to see them. I'm going to watch this one because I remember when it ends. Sarah goes ATP. The first point of the game. The game is pickleball. Look at me, Juggle McJuggleson. I am playing with Sarah back there. She just ATP'd for the first rally win. We are playing against Mike Mundell, who's going to hit this ball. Brian Rich slams it at Jeremy. I hit it in the net. So it's Jeremy at Mike versus Sarah and me. I've got laundry to do, so I'm literally going to record this. I'm going to upload it. But instead of doing no type of commentary, you're going to listen to the second part of our Iran history podcast. It's second part of 3 parts, so 1/6 of what we're going to get is about Iran. We've learned about the late 19th century, they're like 1880, to about 1930, I think, on part 1. This is part 2. It's part of a podcast of a nice young lady puts together. It's free, so I'm not really stealing it. And I would encourage you, if you want to learn more about the world around you, we can all use a wiser world. And history and learning about different countries is a great way to do so. So here it is, Iran part 1, second part of part 1.
Very hard to modernize and secularize Iran, which means to make religion less powerful in terms of political power. And he didn't have much patience with the old ways or traditions of religions. He created a universal education system. It benefited women as well. He took on huge construction programs, created a national army, introduced a modern calendar. You get the idea. Just a lot of creation of a more modern industrial nation. Really spoiled his military, created a strong police force. He changed Iran pretty substantially, and this is the important foundation we need to see the evolution of Iran in the next few episodes, because history gives us context, right? So Reza Shah began calling Iran Iran instead of Persia in 1935. This time period between World War I and World War II was important in Iran because he became very interested in Hitler, Mussolini, the fascist movements going on in Europe at the time. And he was especially fond of the Germans, and despite him saying that Iran was neutral in World War II, he did allow the Germans to come and work in Iran, and Hitler influenced him quite a bit. At the same time, a group of Iranians created a political party called the Tudeh that pushed communism. So we have lots of different things going on in Iran at the time, very tumultuous time in world history. And the British and Soviets were not okay with his flirtation with Hitler, and they stepped in and seized strategic points all over Iran. They obviously wanted oil for the war, and by September 16th, 1941, Reza abdicated, I say in quotes, air quotes, the throne, and gave it to his son Mohammad Reza. Reza Shah, his father, lived in exile in South Africa until his death, and the majority of Iranian people generally didn't like him, so they were happy to see him go. So now we have this young Mohammad Reza, his son, taking over the throne at this crucial point in Iran, and the British have basically put him there. His father has been kicked out, and the British have him there. And the British and Soviets kind of ruled Iran through him, letting the Iranians do it, but definitely an occupying force, using Iran for strategic military purposes during World War II. So for the first 8 or so years of Mohammad Reza's reign, he was a very different kind of leader from his father. He spent a lot of time on racehorses, with women, sports cars, definitely more pro-British, went to London often, and many Iranians did not respect him because they felt that the British kind of had him in their pocket. The Soviets had a lot of power in the north, like we've talked about, and this made the British and the Americans pretty nervous as they were worried about the spread of communism into Iran. And in 1946, just after World War II, the oil workers went on strike. They demanded better healthcare and housing. They wanted their foreign bosses to obey Iranian labor laws. And the British by now had a lot of experience with unhappy natives, and so they refused to negotiate. They killed many people, but this only inflamed public opinion even more. The Majlis began to assert itself again and began to push back against Britain more than they had before. And one man in particular begins to take the political scene at this time, and his name was Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh's story, in a nutshell, is that he was a well-educated lawyer turned political. Most of his education was in Europe. He lived back and forth between Europe and Iran and served in many different Iranian political positions. But he was one of Reza Shah's, so the first Reza Shah, who was exiled, right? He was one of Reza Shah's most sharp critics. He could see Reza for what he was as an absolutist, and he warned everybody that he was going to become a dictator, which he did, right? And so Mossadegh was a very popular leader. Iranians generally trusted him, felt that he knew the country very well. So when Reza gains power, becomes this absolutist dictator, and the Majlis loses its power, Mossadegh kind of disappears from the political scene. Well, when Reza Shah gets put into exile in South Africa, and elections are free in 1943 under his son, Mossadegh runs for election and wins with more votes than any other candidate. He was very popular. And while Mossadegh was a proponent of reform and modernization and democracy, the hill that he was willing to die on, Mossadegh's do or die, was the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. To help illustrate why, in 1947, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company reported a profit of 40 million euros and gave Iran just 7 million. So the British government owned 51% of the shares, More than half of the profits went directly to the British government. Without Iranian oil, the British could in no way keep their standard of living. And back in Iran, for workers, wages at the time were 50 cents a day. As one journalist wrote, quote, "The Iranians lived during the 7 hot months of the year under the trees. In winter times, these masses moved into big halls built by the company, housing up to 3,000 to 4,000 people without walls or partition between them. Each family occupied the space of a blanket. There were no lavatories, no bathrooms. In debates with British colleagues, we often tried to show them the mistake that they were making in treating the Persians the way that they did. The answer was usually, we English have had hundreds of years of experience on how to treat the natives. Socialism is all right back home, but out here you have to be the master." End of quote. So despite these living conditions for Iranians and the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company not reforming, despite the Majlis really working toward it, Iranians were pretty done with it all by now. They wanted democracy, and protests and outrage were rampant, especially as the Shah was rigging the Majlis elections at the time, and both highly religious people and less religious secularists were all invested in nationalizing or at least changing the oil industry. So in 1951, Mossadegh and the Majlis vote to nationalize the oil industry. Basically, this means that the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company would be no more, and Iran would have total control of its own oil. Every person who showed up to vote that day voted to nationalize, and Mossadegh was the main figure behind it all. He was the man at the moment, and he was voted to be prime minister. Mossadegh was seen as kind of a double-edged sword. It threatened not only the oil company and the British Empire, but also the Shah and his continued control over the armed forces. So he had started this mass movement, truly mobilized Iranians for their country, so neither the British nor the Shah really knew what to do with him. And so the Majlis had voted for this nationalization of oil, and now Mossadegh, as prime minister, has to do it. He has to make it happen. And the British were obviously very unhappy with this vote and weren't going to go easily. But they weren't able to manipulate Mossadegh as they had past prime ministers. They even sent warships off the coast. They tried to persuade the Shah to dissolve the parliament completely. Think about this, right? They really wanted to keep this oil control in Iran. They actually lowered wages for workers. Tensions were so high. At this time, the U.S. is super concerned about communism as well, right? This is post-World War II. We're starting the beginning of the Cold War. And at the same time, President Truman has started the CIA, the U.S. spy agency, and he wants to confront communist movements wherever they're appearing. So this is all happening at the same time. While the Iranians generally did not like the British and the Soviets, again, generally, after so many years of being governed by them, Iran at the time did not detest the United States. In fact, there was great admiration for the United States at the time. The U.S. had been actually quite critical of the Anglo-Persian Agreement. They did not agree with the way that the British were handling the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. And even in the 1950s, where we are now, there was this wide chasm between the U.S. and British on how Iran should be handled. And everyone knew that the way that this situation of nationalizing oil in Iran was handled, it was going to be very important in terms of politics in the Middle East.
How we doing? Oh, we got an ad. Let's get rid of the ad.
The things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose.
So while this new
Jeremy fails on the crossover, his feet crossed over, dink to his side. I have no idea who won this game. I have no idea what the score is. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're listening about Iran. We've got them back assward. We failed to hit the third shot drop. Back assward means their backhands are in the middle. Generally, you want your forehands in the middle. Now as they serve, they will stack, and that's what they have. So Mike hits a drive. Shock that he hits a drive. He hits a drive 90.999% of the time. Lob by Jeremy is maybe just long. Hope. Nope. Must have been in because Mikey continues to serve. There's the drive we talked about before. That is well out. He's upset about it. We might do the rest of this the old-fashioned way. Sarah, shallow serve. Nice soft shot. That soft shot allows Jeremy to get up to the kitchen. My third and fifth shot drop are just good enough. Nothing special. And that's what Sarah does. She beats people at the net. Getting a firefight with her, it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. She will whip you in a firefight most of the time. Today's broadcast brought to you by Belvie. It was Belvi. Lovely drink. One of those carbonated beverages are so popular these days. This is featured at your local Aldi's. If you're not aware, Aldi's is expanding their footprint in the Tampa Bay tri-state area. So you're going to probably find this there, or maybe a few other locations, but Aldi seems to be the proprietor that they mostly deliver the products through. I find it to be delightful, a nice little refreshing drink. So our thanks to the fine people of Bellevue for the sponsor of today's broadcast. A very lazy third shot drop. We're both over here hanging out. He hits the ball to where we weren't. That's probably a pretty smart thing to do. So I will serve now. I had a cut to his forehand. They're back assward. I kept them. They might want to change. The fact that I hit that wide meant that I like this choice, right? So I'm coming to get this because I just know I can get it easier. By the way, hitting a forehand to the corner here is pretty easy to do. I'm probably tempted to hit it hard. But the problem with hitting it hard is I'm going to be out of position. So I think I make a smart choice here and hit it intentionally soft and get back in position so we aren't at a disadvantage. Let's see if it pays off. Well, we dribble one over the net. So that and a little good fortune gets us the point. Deep serve. They switch. We drive. Sarah beats him badly with the drive. Jeremy is not up to the task. I go slice again so they can't switch. Nice choice. Let the ball go out. I knew where Mike was going, so I kind of poached that ball. Sarah fails on the drop, but I think we got a lot of points right there, so I'm loving that. I like Mike stepping into that shot. That was a good shot, and then Jeremy beats me. Mike kind of was into that and really drove it forehand as opposed to being gentle. Getting that weight from the back to the front just makes you hit top spin. It's just the right way to hit the ball. Man, he's pretty good at that. I really didn't notice that before. I think that's one of his skills. You know, obviously a guy that drives it frequently and effectively. He's not on his back heel. He's hitting the ball. He's moving and hitting the ball and driving through the ball with the nice weight shift. And nice to do that. He lifts his right foot up as he hits it. Jeremy fails on the reset drop. Ugh. We just lost? Man, I thought we were winning this game. I hit the ball out. That is not the way to end the game on a serve, return of serve. I was trying to go to his backhand deep. It was just too dangerous. And we paid the penalty for my flirtation with danger.